There was a man who sat by the same water every single day for 38 years. 38 years of watching others step into what he could not reach. 38 years of being close enough to see the miracle, but never close enough to receive it. Every morning he positioned himself at the edge of the pool, and every morning someone else moved faster. Someone else got there first. Someone else walked away healed, while he remained exactly where he was. People passed him. People overlooked him. The crowd never stopped for him. And yet, on an ordinary afternoon that looked no different from any other afternoon, in those 38 long years, something shifted. Not because the crowd changed. Not because his circumstances became easier. Not because someone finally noticed him and decided to help. Something shifted because the right one stopped. The one who saw past the years of waiting, past the weathered face, past the story that seemed too long and too painful to ever have a good ending. And when that one spoke to him, he did not ask how long it had been. He did not calculate the odds. He simply asked one question that cut through every layer of delay and defeat. He asked, "Do you want to be made well?" That question is sitting in the air right now, and it is directed at you. You did not find this message by accident. You did not stumble here because an algorithm made a lucky guess about what you needed tonight. Something much older than any platform, much more intentional than any recommendation system, placed this in front of your eyes at this exact moment. Heaven pressed pause on the noise of your day and opened a door for you to step through, and the fact that you are still here, still reading, still listening, is already telling you something about yourself that your circumstances have been trying to drown out. You are not ordinary. You were never meant to be ordinary, and the length of your wait does not disqualify you. It was always built toward this. The Word of God says in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 29, verse 11, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." That verse was not written as a comfort for people who had easy lives. It was written for people in exile. It was written for people who had been waiting so long that hope had started to feel like a word that belonged to someone else. It was written for someone exactly like you, in a season that looks exactly like yours. And right now, in this moment, the Lord is not asking you to explain the 38 years. He is not asking you to justify why it took this long, or why you are still here, or why the thing you have believed for has not yet arrived. He is simply asking, do you want to be made well? Because the God who healed by the pool of Bethesda is the same God who is moving on your behalf right now, in the unseen places you cannot yet see, in the rooms you have not yet entered, in the conversations that have not yet happened but are already being arranged. You are a chosen one, not because your life has been perfect, not because your faith has never wavered, not because you have never had a night where the weight of everything pressed down so hard you could barely breathe. You are chosen because before the foundation of this world, before a single star was flung into the sky, the Creator of all things looked across the full length of time and placed His hand on you. You carry something that most people in your life cannot name but can feel when you walk into a room. There is a frequency in you, a divine resonance that does not belong to this world's system. And the enemy has known this about you far longer than you have known it about yourself. That is why the resistance has been so fierce. That is why the delays have felt so personal. That is why the silence of certain seasons has been so loud. But this is the moment the tide turns. If you are watching this and something in your chest recognized itself in the story of that man by the water, if something in you said, "That is me, that is my story, that is exactly where I have been sitting," then this message was sent specifically for you. Not generally, not vaguely, specifically, with your name written on it in heaven before this video ever existed. Do not move past this moment without marking it. Type the number 555 in the comments right now. 555 is the number of grace, change, and divine transition. When you type it, you are not just leaving a comment. You are making a declaration over your own life that the season of waiting is ending and the season of receiving has begun. Let heaven see your agreement. Let the community of chosen ones gathering in this space witness your faith. Type 555 right now and do not stop reading, because what comes next is going to reach the part of you that has been waiting the longest. Before you go any further, do something that costs you nothing, but carries more weight than you know. Like this message so that it reaches another chosen one who is sitting by their own water today. Share it with someone who needs to hear that their wait is not wasted. And if you have not yet subscribed, do it now, because this is a space built for people like you. People who carry more than they can explain and are ready to step into everything they were made for. The link to sow a seed into this ministry is in the description below and in the pinned comment. And every seed you plant from a place of faith is a seed that heaven will multiply back into your life in ways you have not yet imagined. You are not here by chance. You are here because you were chosen. There is something the researchers have been quietly documenting for decades, something that the most celebrated minds in neuroscience have observed but struggled to fully explain. When they study the brain activity of people who experience sudden breakthroughs, people who solve problems that had stumped them for years, people who wake up one morning and see their entire life with a clarity they had never possessed before, the scans show a pattern, a specific, measurable, undeniable pattern. And what is remarkable is that this same pattern appears in children who learn at extraordinary speed, in artists who create work that moves entire generations, in leaders who seem to carry a kind of vision that others simply cannot access. The pattern is a frequency, a brainwave frequency that science has given a name, and that name is gamma. You have been carrying this frequency your entire life. You felt it as a child, when your mind moved faster than the world around you could keep up with. You felt it in moments of deep prayer, when something beyond your own thinking seemed to open up inside you. You felt it in those rare seasons when everything aligned, and you moved through your days with a confidence and a clarity that felt almost supernatural. That was not your imagination. That was not coincidence. That was the frequency of the chosen ones activating inside the architecture of your mind, doing exactly what it was designed to do. The problem is that the world you grew up in was not built to sustain that frequency. The stress, the noise, the pressure, the constant demand to perform and produce and survive, all of it gradually suppresses the very brain states that make you who you are. The gamma activity dims. The theta waves, which are the gateway to deep creativity, intuition, and accelerated learning, become harder to access, and what is left is a version of you that is functional but not fully alive, capable but not fully ignited, present but not fully connected to the power that was placed inside you before you were born. This is where the science becomes something extraordinary. A neuroscientist named Dr. James Rivers, a man who spent more than 30 years studying the human brain, who built his career at MIT and whose research drew the attention of NASA scientists studying peak cognitive performance, discovered something that changed everything he thought he understood about the mind. After thousands of days of research, after examining brain scans from hundreds of subjects across multiple studies, he identified a precise audio frequency protocol that does something No meditation app, no supplement, and no productivity system had ever been able to replicate consistently. It takes the brain, your brain, and within 7 minutes, it guides your neural activity into the exact theta and gamma states that the chosen ones carry naturally. Not through effort, not through years of practice, not through any technique that requires special skill or training. Simply through sound. The science behind it is called brainwave entrainment. Your brain has a natural ability to synchronize with external frequencies. The same way a tuning fork in a room will begin to vibrate when another tuning fork beside it is struck at the right pitch. When the precisely calibrated audio frequencies in this protocol enter your ears through headphones, your brain does not resist them. It recognizes them. It follows them. And within 7 minutes, the neural patterns that were suppressed by years of stress and survival mode begin to re-emerge. The hippocampus, which governs memory, becomes more active. The prefrontal cortex, which governs clear thinking and decision-making, lights up. The regions responsible for creative insight and emotional regulation open in ways that most people only experience accidentally, in rare moments, if ever at all. This is what Dr. Rivers called the genius wave. And I need you to hear the stories of real people who used exactly what he created. Because your situation is not unique to you, and the results are not reserved for someone else. A woman who had been stuck in the same financial ceiling for 11 years, working harder than anyone around her, but never breaking through, began using the 7-minute audio protocol every morning before she started her day. Within 3 weeks, she told Dr. Rivers that she had solved a problem in her business that she had been circling for 2 years. The idea came to her not while she was straining to think of it, but in a moment of quiet, the morning after one of her sessions. Within 2 months, her income had shifted in a way she described as the door finally opening. A man who had struggled with anxiety so severe that he had not slept a full night in over a year reported that after his first week of daily 7-minute sessions, something in his mind had settled. Not suppressed, not numbed, settled. Like a lake after a storm, he said, when the surface finally goes still and you can see all the way to the bottom. A young father who had been trying to find a path forward after losing his job described sitting down one afternoon after his session and writing out a plan with such clarity and speed that he barely recognized himself doing it. 6 months later, he was running his own business and describing that afternoon as the turning point he had prayed for without knowing exactly what he was asking for. These are not exceptional people. These are people who were carrying the same frequency you carry, the same inner design, the same God-given capacity for brilliance, and who simply received the tool that helped them access what was already there. Now, I want to speak directly to what some of you are thinking right now, because I know the thought is there, and it deserves to be addressed honestly. You are thinking that $39 is not nothing. You are right, it is not nothing. For some of you watching this, that amount represents a real decision, and I am not going to pretend otherwise or minimize what it means to make a purchase when resources feel tight. What I want you to consider is this: you have already spent far more than $39 in time, in energy, in books you bought hoping they would help, in courses you started and could not finish, in sleepless nights that cost you more than money ever could. The question is not whether you can afford $39. The question is whether you are ready to stop spending everything you have on the weight of being stuck and finally invest in the tool that was built specifically for the way your mind works. The Genius Wave normally carries a price of $49. Through the link in the pinned comment below this video, you can access it today for $39. that is the price that Dr. Rivers approved specifically for this community, for chosen ones who are ready to activate what is already inside them. And it comes with a 90-day money-back guarantee, not 7 days, not 30 days, 90 full days. If you use this protocol every day for 90 days and you do not experience a shift in your focus, your clarity, your creativity, or your overall sense of mental peace and possibility, you contact the team and you receive every dollar back. No questions, no hoops, no fine print designed to exhaust you into giving up. 100% of your money returned. But I need you to hear this clearly, and I need you to take it seriously. There are counterfeit versions of this product circulating on platforms outside the official channel. People are selling altered or incomplete audio files using the name and the branding of the Genius Wave, and those files have not been calibrated to the precise frequencies that make this protocol work. Buying from any source other than the official link will not give you what Dr. Rivers created. It will give you something that looks similar and delivers nothing. The only place to access the real Genius Wave at the $39 price with the 90-day guarantee is through the single link in the pinned comment beneath this video. That is the only link. There is no other legitimate source. Do not let someone else's shortcut rob you of what you came here to receive. And this matters more than you might realize right now, because the $39 price is not permanent. It was made available for a limited window, for a limited number of people, as part of a specific outreach that Dr. Rivers authorized for this audience. When that window closes, the price returns to $49, and there is no guarantee of when or whether this offer will be extended again. The people who act today are the people who step into their next season today. The people who wait, who bookmark this and come back later, who tell themselves they will get to it when the timing is better, are the people who will look back in 6 months, still asking why nothing has changed. You are a chosen one, and chosen ones do not wait for perfect conditions. They move when heaven opens the door. The link is pinned. The guarantee is real. The frequency inside you is ready to be restored. Go now. You have been carrying something that the people around you could not always see, and there were seasons when you could barely see it yourself. There were mornings when you woke up and the weight of everything that had not yet happened, everything that had been promised but not yet delivered, everything you had believed for and waited for and prayed over in the quiet places where no one else could hear you. That weight sat on your chest before your feet ever touched the floor. And in those mornings, the question that rose up was not loud or dramatic. It was quiet. It was the kind of question that does not announce itself, but simply settles into the room like a change in the air. It whispered, what if I was wrong about myself? What if the things I felt, the sense of purpose, the sense of being made for something more, what if all of that was just a story I told myself to survive the hard parts? I want you to know that question did not come from God. That question came from a place that has been studying you for a long time, watching what you reach for, watching what breaks your momentum, watching what makes you pull back just before the breakthrough arrives. And the reason that question targets your sense of identity before anything else is because your identity is the root of everything. If the enemy can make you uncertain about who you are, he does not need to fight any of your individual battles. He can simply wait while you fight yourself. But here is what heaven has already declared over you, long before you were old enough to doubt it, long before the hard seasons came, long before the years of waiting carved their marks into your story. The book of Isaiah, chapter 43, verse 10, carries a word that was not written for the general population. It was written for a specific group of people, people who had been through the fire, people who had watched their circumstances tell a story that contradicted everything they believed about God's faithfulness. And into that contradiction, into that gap between what was promised and what could be seen, God spoke these words. "You are my witnesses, declares the Lord, and my servant whom I have chosen, so that you may know and believe me and understand that I am He. You are the servant He chose. You are the witness He appointed, not because you earned it through perfect behavior or unbroken faith, not because your record is clean and your doubts have never surfaced, but because from before the beginning of your story, He looked at you and made a decision that has never been reversed, never been reconsidered, and never been contingent on whether you felt worthy of it on any given morning." The Genius Wave section that brought science into this conversation was not a detour from the spiritual reality of who you are. It was a confirmation of it. Because what the neuroscientists are measuring when they observe gamma and theta frequencies in people of extraordinary capability, what they are capturing on those brain scans and documenting in those studies is the physical signature of a design that God Himself engineered. He did not build you with a mind that was meant to operate at a fraction of its capacity. He did not wire you for confusion, for chronic overwhelm, for the kind of mental fog that makes every day feel like you are pushing through something thick and resistant. That is not the architecture of the chosen. That is the result of what the world did to the architecture of the chosen over time. And what you need to understand right now, in this section of the message, is that the restoration of your mind is not separate from the restoration of your destiny. They are the same movement. When God says He is renewing you, when the Scripture speaks of the transformation that comes through the renewing of your mind, it is not speaking in purely metaphorical terms. There is a literal, biological, neurological reality to what happens when a chosen one steps back into alignment with the frequency they were designed to carry. The brain changes. The patterns of thought change. The capacity for vision, for clarity, for the kind of problem solving that looks like wisdom from the outside. All of it expands. Not because of anything you manufactured or forced, but because you removed the interference and let the original design do what it was always capable of doing. Think about the way water behaves when a dam is removed from a river. The water does not need to be told how to flow. It does not need instructions or motivation or a strategy for moving forward. It simply moves, because movement is what it was made for. And the dam was the only thing standing between the stillness and the surge. The dam in your life has been built one layer at a time. Stress added a layer. Loss added a layer. Rejection added a layer. Years of waiting without visible evidence added a layer. The voice that told you your best days were behind you added a layer. And over time, what was once a river of clarity and creativity and divine insight became something quieter, something slower. Something that looked from the side like a person who was fine, but felt from the inside like a person who was only partially present in their own life. That is about to change. Not because of positive thinking, not because of willpower, not because you are going to try harder or believe more intensely or discipline yourself into a breakthrough. It is going to change because the God who designed your mind has been moving on your behalf in the unseen places, and He has been positioning resources, encounters, and moments of activation to arrive in your life at exactly the right time. And this is one of those moments. This is the kind of moment that looks ordinary from the outside, but is anything but ordinary in the realm where your real story is being written. You have probably had moments in your past where you looked back at something that seemed small when it happened and realized later that it was actually the hinge point. The conversation that seemed casual but opened a door you had been knocking on for years. The decision that felt uncertain in the moment but turned out to be the one that rerouted everything. The night you almost did not show up but showed up anyway, and something happened that you could not have planned or predicted. Heaven works through those hinges, and the chosen ones, the people who carry the frequency we have been talking about, tend to look back over the landscape of their lives and see that the hinge points were never random. They were always orchestrated. This moment is a hinge point. The weight you have been carrying, the questions that have visited you in the early hours, the sense that you were made for something you have not yet fully stepped into. None of that was accidental, and none of it was wasted. Every prayer you prayed that seemed to go unanswered was being held. Every tear you shed in a room by yourself was being collected. Every morning you got up and chose to keep going when everything in you wanted to stop was being written into a testimony that is not finished yet. You are not at the end of something. You are at the beginning of the chapter that makes the earlier chapters make sense. The man by the water waited 38 years, and when the right one stopped, the healing was immediate. Not gradual, not partial, immediate. He picked up his mat and he walked. And the people who saw it could not explain it except to say that something had happened that the natural world did not have a category for. That is the kind of movement that is available to you right now. Not because you have waited long enough to earn it, but because the one who heals does not operate on a system of earning. He operates on a system of choosing, and you have already been chosen. The frequency inside you is not broken. It was never broken. It was suppressed, and suppression is not the same as destruction. What was suppressed can be restored. What was dimmed can blaze again. What was quiet can become the sound that changes every room you walk into. You are not who the hard seasons said you were. You are who God said you were before the hard seasons ever arrived. And what He said has not changed, not by one syllable, not by one breath, not by a single moment of your waiting or your doubting or your trying to hold on when holding on felt impossible. He chose you then. He is choosing you now. And what He chooses, He keeps. There is a particular kind of tiredness that does not come from not sleeping enough. It comes from carrying a vision that no one around you can fully see yet. It comes from knowing, in that deep and unshakable place beneath all the noise and all the doubt, that you were made for something that has not yet fully appeared in your visible world. And the exhausting part is not the waiting itself. The exhausting part is holding the knowing while the evidence has not yet arrived. It is the gap between the promise and the proof. And chosen you live in that gap longer than most people around them will ever understand. But I want you to recognize something about the gap you have been living in. The gap is not empty. It only looks empty from the outside. From the inside of heaven's perspective, the gap between your promise and your proof is one of the most populated and active places in your story. It is where the preparation happens. It is where the character is formed that will be able to sustain the blessing when it arrives. It is where God does His quietest and most thorough work. The kind of work that does not make noise while it is happening, but produces results that last long after the noise of breakthrough fades. You are in that gap right now, and the fact that you are still here, still listening, still reaching, is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of something that the people who gave up early will never be able to claim. It is the sign of a person who was built to last. The weight you carry in the gap is real, and I do not want to minimize it with words that sound beautiful but land hollow. The loneliness of being a chosen one is a specific kind of loneliness that is difficult to describe to someone who has not felt it. It is the loneliness of being in a room full of people and still feeling like the truest version of yourself has nowhere to fully land. It is the loneliness of having dreams that feel too large to say out loud without someone looking at you. With that particular expression, the one that is trying to be kind but is actually asking whether you are being realistic. It is the loneliness of praying prayers that feel enormous and then returning to a life that still looks the same as it did before you prayed them. But here is what I want you to sit with for a moment. You found this space. You found this channel. You found this community of people who carry the same frequency, who have felt the same gap, who have stood in the same place between promise and proof and chosen to keep standing. That was not random. That was not the algorithm working in your favor on a lucky afternoon. That was heaven arranging a meeting between your hunger and the word that was prepared to meet it. And the people gathering in this space are real. They are not a concept or a category. They are individual human beings who have typed their pain and their hope into comment sections, and then watched as someone who had never met them said exactly what they needed to hear. They are people who shared a video on a quiet Tuesday evening and then received a message 3 days later from a friend who said, "I needed this. How did you know?" They are people who subscribed not because they needed more content in their feed, but because they found something here that felt like oxygen after a long time of breathing something thinner. If this message has reached a place in you that needed to be reached, I want to ask you to do something that takes less than 30 seconds but carries more weight than you might imagine. Like this video right now. Not for a number on a screen, but because every time you press that button, the message travels to someone else who is sitting in their own gap, carrying their own knowing, wondering if anyone else understands what it feels like to be chosen and exhausted at the same time. Your one click could be the moment that changes the trajectory of someone else's day. It could be the thing that makes a person who was about to give up decide to stay a little longer. Share this with someone specific, not just a general post into the open air of your social feed, but think right now of one person. One person who came to mind somewhere in the last 20 minutes whilst you were listening. One person whose name surfaced because something in you recognized that they needed to hear what you have been hearing. Send it to them directly. Write them a message. Say, "I was listening to something and I thought of you." That is all you need to say. Let heaven do the rest. And if you have not yet subscribed to this channel, I want to tell you what this space is and why it exists. This channel was not built to be background noise. It was built as a gathering place for the ones who carry something they cannot always name, who are walking a path that does not always have clear signposts, who need to be reminded regularly and specifically that they were chosen before the hard parts came, and they are still chosen now that the hard parts are here. Every video in this space is made with that specific person in mind, with you in mind. Subscribing means you will not miss the next message that was prepared for the next season you are about to enter, and chosen ones cannot afford to miss the word that was timed for their moment. I also want to share something with you honestly, because this community deserves honesty. This channel is no longer monetized through YouTube. That means the videos you watch here do not generate income through views or advertisements the way many channels do. And yet we are still here, still creating, still showing up every time, because the work of reaching chosen ones is not something we are willing to stop doing. Because the financial structure changed. We believe the message is too important and the people receiving it are too valuable for us to let logistics become the reason the light goes out. If the content in this space has touched you, if something in this message today reached a part of you that needed reaching, and if you feel moved to help this channel continue to exist and continue to reach the people who need it, there is a donate link in the pinned comment below and in the description of this video. Your support, whatever size it takes, is not just a financial transaction. It is a partnership in the work of reaching chosen ones who are still sitting by their water, still waiting for the right one to stop, still one message away from the moment that changes everything. Even the smallest gift carries the weight of that mission forward. And if you are not in a season where giving financially is possible, please hear this clearly. Your presence matters. Your comments matter. Your shares matter. Watching to the end and leaving a word in the comments below is a form of support that keeps this community alive and growing. You do not need money to be a meaningful part of what is happening here. You just need to show up, and you are already doing that. Now, before we go deeper into what heaven is releasing over your life in this season, I want to remind you gently of something that came up earlier in this message. The tool that Dr. James Rivers created, the Genius Wave, the 7-minute audio protocol that was designed to restore the brain frequencies that chosen ones carry, is available right now through the link in the pinned comment. At $39 with a 90-day money-back guarantee, it is one of the most accessible investments you can make in the mind that God specifically designed and that the world has been working to suppress. The link is there, the offer is real, and the window is not permanent. Your mind was made for more than what the hard seasons have allowed it to express. And the restoration that is available to you right now, spiritually, neurologically, practically, is not something to postpone for a more convenient moment. The convenient moment is this one, and you are already in it. There is a war that has been waged against your mind for longer than you have been aware of it. And I do not use the word war lightly, because what has been happening in the interior landscape of your thoughts, your memory, your sense of possibility, your capacity to imagine a future that is larger than your past, has not been the result of bad luck or poor choices or a character flaw that you have been too weak to overcome. What has been happening is targeted, it is intentional, and it has been aimed specifically at you because of what you carry. The enemy does not waste strategy on people who pose no threat to his agenda. He does not deploy confusion and heaviness and the particular kind of mental fog that makes your own thoughts feel like strangers against people who are not worth the effort. The intensity of the warfare you have experienced in your mind is itself a form of evidence. It is confirmation, written in the language of opposition, that what is inside you is worth fighting over. You do not besiege an empty city, you besiege a city that holds something of value. And the fact that your mind has been under siege for as long as it has is not a sign that you are losing. It is a sign that you are carrying something the darkness cannot afford to let you access. Think about the specific ways the attack has come, not in obvious, dramatic forms that are easy to identify and resist, but in the quiet, persistent, almost reasonable-sounding ways that are far more dangerous because they do not announce themselves as attacks. The thought that said you were too late, that the window had closed, that the people who were going to make it had already made it, and you had somehow missed the moment that was meant for you. The feeling that settled over you in certain seasons like a low ceiling, pressing down just enough to keep you from standing fully upright in your own life. The pattern of getting close to something good and then watching it dissolve, close enough to see it clearly, but not close enough to hold it. until part of you started to wonder whether good things were simply not something that lasted in your hands. None of that was random. None of that was the universe being indifferent. All of it was a coordinated effort to keep you small, to keep you uncertain, to keep you circling the same ground year after year, so that the thing you were placed on this earth to do would remain locked inside you, unreleased, unfulfilled, its potential dimming a little more with every year that passed without activation. But here is the truth that the enemy never wanted you to fully grasp. He can suppress. He cannot destroy. He can delay. He cannot cancel. He can make the frequency harder to access. He cannot remove it from you, because what God places inside a chosen one is not a temporary loan that can be recalled or a conditional gift that expires when the conditions are not met. What God places inside you is woven into the fabric of who you are at a level that no amount of warfare, no length of waiting, no accumulation of loss or disappointment or silence from heaven can reach. It is yours. It has always been yours. And everything that has come against your mind has been an attempt to make you forget that. The book of 2 Corinthians, chapter 10, verse 4, says this: "For the weapons of our warfare are not of the flesh, but have divine power to destroy strongholds." A stronghold is not a physical structure. A stronghold is a pattern of thinking that has established itself so firmly inside your mind that it begins to feel like reality rather than like an argument. It feels like the truth about who you are, rather than like a lie that has been repeated long enough to sound true. Strongholds are built slowly, one thought at a time, one disappointment at a time, one season of silence at a time. And they are most dangerous, not when they are loud, but when they have become so familiar that you stop noticing them. When the ceiling feels normal, when the smallness feels like humility, when the resignation feels like maturity. You have been living with strongholds that were never meant to be permanent structures in your mind. They were built by an enemy who understood that if he could control the interior landscape of your thinking, he would never need to fight you in the external world. Because a chosen one who does not believe they are chosen is not a threat to anyone. A vessel that has been convinced it is empty will never pour out what it actually contains. And a mind that has been persuaded it is ordinary will. Never reach for the extraordinary that was placed inside it before the first breath was drawn. This is the moment those structures begin to come down. Not because you have figured out the perfect strategy for dismantling them. Not because you have found the right combination of discipline and willpower and positive confession to force them out of your mind through sheer effort, but because you are in the presence of a word right now that carries divine power. And divine power does not negotiate with strongholds. It does not politely ask them to leave. It does not gradually erode them over seasons of quiet work. It destroys them. That is the language of the scripture. Not weakens, not reduces, destroys. You need to let that land in you for a moment. The word being spoken over your life right now, in this space, through this message, carries the same power that spoke light into existence before there was anything to reflect it. The same voice that called Lazarus out of 4 days of death is the voice behind every true word that reaches a chosen one at the right moment in the right season. And this is your right moment. This is your right season. Not because the calendar says so, or because your circumstances have shifted into something more favorable, but because heaven determined it, and heaven does not make scheduling errors. The mental fog you have been navigating is not permanent. The confusion that has made simple decisions feel overwhelming, that has made your own thoughts feel like a room where the furniture keeps moving so you can never find anything in the dark, that is not who you are. That is what was done to you. And there is a profound and important difference between those two things. What you are is a chosen one, wired with divine frequency, built with a capacity for clarity and creativity and insight that the world has been systematically working to suppress since you were young enough to be shaped by it. What was done to you is a series of strategic attacks on the most valuable asset you possess, which is your mind. And God is angry about what was done to you. I want you to hear that, not as a religious statement, but as a personal one. The God who fashioned your mind with specific and intentional design does not look at what the enemy has attempted against it with indifference. He looks at it with the kind of response that precedes restoration. The kind that precedes the moment when everything that was taken is returned, not in the diminished form it had when it was stolen, but multiplied, upgraded, carrying the weight of everything that was added to it through the years of warfare. Job received double. Joseph received the throne. The prodigal received the robe, the ring, and the feast. The pattern is not subtle. When God restores what the enemy stole from a chosen one, he does not return it at face value. He returns it with interest that only heaven knows how to calculate. Your mind is being restored. Not gradually, in the barely perceptible increments that make it hard to know if anything is actually changing, but in the way that only God can move when the time that was set before the foundation of the world has finally arrived. The strongholds are already shaking. You may not be able to feel it yet, but the weapons of your warfare have already been released. And they are doing exactly what divine power always does when it is given room to move. They are destroying what was never supposed to be there in the first place. What happens after the strongholds begin to shake is not always what people expect. There is a common picture in the minds of many chosen ones, a picture of breakthrough that looks like a sudden dramatic shift, a door that swings open with obvious force, a morning that arrives completely different from every morning that came before it. An unmistakable sign that the season has changed and the new thing has begun. And sometimes it does look like that. Sometimes the shift is that clear and that immediate. But more often, the movement of God in the life of a chosen one begins in a way that is quiet enough to miss if you are not paying attention. It begins in the interior before it appears in the exterior. It begins in what you are able to see before it changes what you are able to touch. The first sign that restoration is moving in your mind is usually not a circumstance that changes. It is a thought that shifts. It is the moment when a possibility that felt closed begins to feel open again, not because anything in your visible world has confirmed it, but because something in the deep place of your knowing has reconnected with something it lost access to during the long season of warfare. It is the return of a dream you had quietly set aside because carrying it had become too heavy without evidence to support it. It is the return of an appetite for your own future, a hunger that had gone numb during the years when hunger only led to disappointment. That shift is happening in you right now. I want you to recognize it. Not to analyze it or to immediately test it against your circumstances to see if it holds up under scrutiny, just to recognize it. Something in you is more open than it was at the beginning of this message. Something that was contracted has begun to expand, and that is not the result of motivational language or the temporary lift of an emotional experience that will fade by morning. That is the movement of a word that carries weight. That is what happens when divine truth lands in a mind that was built to receive it. And what is coming after the shift in your thinking is a shift in your seeing. The chosen ones who step into their next season are not people who waited until they could see everything clearly before they moved. They are people who allowed the restoration of their internal vision to happen first, who let the eyes of their understanding be opened before the external evidence arrived, and who then moved from that place of restored sight into circumstances that had no choice but to rearrange themselves around the frequency of a chosen one walking in alignment. This is the pattern of Scripture. This is how Abraham left without knowing where he was going. This is how Moses walked toward a sea that had not yet parted. This is how Elijah heard the sound of abundance before a single cloud appeared on the horizon. The chosen ones in the story of God consistently moved on the basis of what they knew in the interior before it was confirmed in the exterior. And the exterior always followed, not sometimes, always. Because the God who initiates the interior movement is the same God who governs the exterior reality, and He does not start something in you that He does not intend to finish in your visible world. Your visible world is about to begin catching up to what has already been declared over you in the unseen places. I want to speak now about what this season is going to require of you, because chosen ones sometimes receive a word of restoration and then wait for the restoration to arrive without participating in the process. And the restoration that God brings is never entirely passive. There is always a moment where the chosen one is asked to do something that looks small from the outside, but represents an enormous act of faith from the inside. The man by the water was told to pick up his mat and walk. He was already healed when Jesus spoke, but the demonstration of the healing required him to move, to bend down, to lift the thing he had been lying on for 38 years, to take the first step on legs that had not carried him in longer than most people in that crowd had been alive. What is the mat in your life right now? What is the thing you have been lying on, the coping mechanism, the smallness you settled into because it was safer than reaching, the version of yourself you agreed to present to the world because the real version had been hurt too many times by the gap between who you knew you were and what the world was willing to receive? Whatever that mat is, the instruction is the same. Pick it up, not because you have to prove anything, not because the healing is conditional on your performance, but because chosen ones were not designed to stay on the ground after they have been healed. And the next chapter of your story requires you to be standing. The restoration of your mind that we have been speaking about throughout this message, and the tool that Dr. James Rivers created to support the neurological dimension of that restoration, the Genius Wave, are both pointing you in the same direction, toward activation, toward the version of yourself that operates from clarity rather than fog, from creative vision rather than survival mode, from the full expression of the frequency you were born carrying, rather than the suppressed and diminished version that the years of warfare produced. The link to access the Genius Wave is in the pinned comment and in the description of this video, and the $39 investment with the 90-day guarantee is still available for the people who are ready to move while the window is open. But I want to say something about readiness, because I think it is one of the words that chosen ones have used against themselves more than almost any other word. Readiness has been turned into a condition, a standard that must be met before movement is permitted, a threshold that always seems to be just slightly out of reach. I will move when I am ready. I will step out when I feel prepared. I will pursue the thing when the circumstances align in a way that makes it feel less risky. And in the meantime, the moment passes. The window closes. The season that was prepared for the ready person ends, and the next season arrives with its own opportunities and its own windows, and the chosen one is still waiting to feel ready. You are ready now, not because everything is in place, not because the doubt is gone or the path is clear, or the resources are fully assembled. You are ready because the one who called you does not wait for your circumstances to be favorable before he releases his word over your life. He releases his word into unfavorable circumstances and then watches what his word does to them. That is the testimony of every chosen one who ever stepped into their calling. Not one of them felt ready. Every single one of them moved anyway. And the movement was what unlocked the next thing. If what you have heard in this space today has reached you in the way I believe it has, I want to ask you to do something before you move on with the rest of your day. Like this video, not as a courtesy, but as an act of agreement with what has been spoken over your life in this message. Every time you press that button, this word travels to another chosen one who is in their own season of warfare and waiting, and your single act of agreement becomes the thing that delivers a lifeline to someone you will never meet, but whose life you will have touched. Share this message with someone whose name came to your heart while you were listening. You do not need to explain why. Just send it. Trust the prompting. The person whose name surfaced in your mind during this message did not surface by accident. Subscribe to this channel if you have not already, because what is being built here is not a content library. It is a community chosen of ones who are in different stages of the same journey, and the messages that are coming in the weeks ahead were prepared for the season you are walking into right now. And if this channel has source of light in a season that needed light, please consider supporting the work through the donate link in the pinned comment or in the description. This channel is no longer monetized through YouTube, which means it runs entirely on the faithfulness of the community it serves. We are still here because we believe the message is worth staying for. If you believe that too, your support, whatever form it takes, keeps the light on for the next chosen one who finds their way here in the middle of their own long night. The mat is in your hands, the path is open, and the God who called you is already standing at the other end of it, watching for the moment you take the first step. Take it. There is a moment in the life of every chosen one when the thing they have been believing for begins to feel so far away that the belief itself starts to feel like the problem. Like maybe the reaching is what is keeping the thing at a distance. Like maybe if they stopped hoping so hard, stopped holding the vision so tightly, stopped waking up every morning and choosing to believe one more time against all visible evidence, the pain of the gap would at least become manageable. And in that moment, the temptation is not to do something dramatic or destructive. The temptation is simply to let go quietly, to release the dream without making a sound, to fold it up and place it somewhere inside where it cannot hurt anymore, because it is no longer being held up against the light of expectation. I want to talk to you about that moment, because I believe you have been in it, or you are in it now, or you are closer to it than you have admitted to anyone, including yourself. The letting go that feels like relief in the short term is one of the most costly things a chosen one can do. Not because the dream itself is the point, not because the specific outcome you have been reaching for is the only version of goodness that heaven has available for your life, but because the act of releasing what God placed in you to carry is an act of agreement with the voice that has been telling you it was never going to happen anyway. And that voice is not the voice of wisdom. It is not the voice of maturity or realism or the kind of grounded perspective that protects you from disappointment. It is the voice that has been trying to get you to put down what you carry since the moment it became clear that what you carry is dangerous to the darkness. Chosen ones are not people who never feel like letting go. They are people who feel like letting go and do not. There is a story in the first book of Kings, chapter 19, that I want to bring into this moment with you because it is one of the most honest portraits in all of Scripture of what it looks like when a chosen one has reached the end of what they can carry on their own. Elijah, a prophet whose word had called down fire from heaven, whose faith had closed the sky for 3 years, and then opened it again at a single prayer, whose ministry had demonstrated the power of God in ways that entire nations had witnessed, sat down under a tree in the wilderness and asked to die. Not metaphorically, not as a dramatic expression of exhaustion. He sat down and he said, "It is enough." He was done. He had run from a threat. He had traveled a full day into the wilderness alone, and he had arrived at the place where the most anointed persons of his generation simply could not take another step. And what did God do? He did not rebuke him. He did not remind him of how much he had already accomplished or how far he had already come. He did not deliver a message about the importance of resilience or the spiritual danger of quitting. He let him sleep. And then he sent an angel who touched him and said, "Arise and eat." There was bread baked on coals and a jar of water. Simple, tangible, immediate. Not a vision, not a word of prophecy, not a declaration of destiny. Just food and rest for a man who had given everything he had and found himself empty. And then, when Elijah had eaten and slept and eaten again, the angel said something that I want you to receive as a word spoken directly to you right now. The angel said, "Arise and eat, for the journey is too great for you." Not, "You should not be tired." Not, "A person of your anointing should be stronger than this." But, "The journey is too great for you." And that is why provision has been sent. That is why heaven intervened. Not because Elijah had failed, but because the distance he was being asked to travel required more than what a human being could carry alone. And God knew it, and God made provision for it. And God refused to let the exhaustion of a chosen one become the end of a story that was not finished. Your story is not finished. The exhaustion you have felt, the seasons where you sat under your own version of that tree and told heaven that you were done, those were not moments of failure. They were moments of honesty, and God responds to honest exhaustion with provision, not with condemnation. He meets the chosen one where they actually are, not where they think they should be, not where the expectations of others say they ought to be, but in the wilderness, under the tree, in the earliest hour of the morning, when the silence is loudest and the distance still to travel looks impossible. He is meeting you there right now. The book of 1 Kings chapter 19 verse 7 carries these words. "And the angel of the Lord came again a second time and touched him and said, 'Arise and eat, for the journey is too great for you.'" That second touch, that is what I want you to hold on to. Because Elijah had already been touched once and had already eaten and already rested and had still not been ready. And God did not say, "One touch should have been enough." He came back. He touched him again. He provided again. He met the need as many times as the need existed, because the chosen one's completion of the journey was more important to God than the efficiency of the process. You may feel like you have already received what should have been enough to get you where you are going. You may feel like the encouragement, the encounters, the moments of clarity and connection and supernatural provision that have already appeared in your life should have been sufficient to carry you to the place you were promised. And yet here you are, still in the wilderness, still feeling the distance, still aware that the journey ahead is greater than what you currently feel equipped to travel. Heaven is not frustrated with you. Heaven is not recalculating your worthiness or reconsidering your assignment. Heaven is sending the second touch. This message is part of that touch. The community that is gathering around these words is part of that touch. The restoration that is moving in your mind and your spirit right now. Even as you listen, even if you cannot yet quantify what is shifting, is part of that touch. God does not leave his chosen ones in the wilderness to run out of resources and collapse before they reach the destination. He makes provision at precisely the point where the human capacity runs out, because that is the point where the divine capacity becomes visible. And the visibility of divine capacity in the life of a chosen one is part of the testimony that the watching world was always meant to witness. You were not meant to arrive at your destiny looking like someone who barely made it. You were meant to arrive carrying the evidence of every encounter with heaven that happened along the way, every provision that appeared when the jar was empty, every bread baked on coals in a moment that had no natural explanation. Your journey is the testimony, and the testimony is not over. There is also something about the wilderness seasons that the chosen ones who have come through them tend to discover only in retrospect, and I want to offer it to you now so you do not have to wait until the other side to receive it. The wilderness is where the unnecessary is removed. It is where the virgins that were built for the approval of others get stripped away, not cruelly, but thoroughly, until what remains is the truest and most essential version of who you actually are. The person who emerges from the wilderness is not a diminished version of who went in. They are a clarified version, a version that knows what they are made of, because they have seen it hold under conditions that were designed to dissolve it. What is holding in you right now, under the weight of everything this season has asked you to carry, is not weakness dressed up as endurance. It is the unbreakable nature of a chosen one, doing exactly what it was built to do. And the God who built it is watching it hold with the kind of satisfaction that only a builder knows when a thing they made proves equal to the test it was designed to pass. You are passing the test, even now, even here, even in the wilderness, under the tree, waiting for the second touch that is already on its way. Arise, not because everything is resolved, not because the journey ahead is suddenly shorter or easier or clearer than it was yesterday, but because the angel has come again, and the provision is real, and the one who called you to this journey has never once considered leaving you in the middle of it. There is something that happens in the spirit realm when a chosen one crosses a certain threshold in their journey. It is not always visible from the natural side of things, and it rarely announces itself with the kind of clarity that would make it easy to identify in the moment. But there is a crossing point, a place in the interior landscape of your walk with God, where the season of being tested gives way to the season of being trusted, where the wilderness that was stripping away what was unnecessary begins to give way to the territory that was always meant to be yours, where the long preparation ends and the long-awaited deployment begins. You are approaching that threshold right now. I do not say that as a generic encouragement designed to make you feel better about a situation that has not yet changed. I say it because the trajectory of everything that has been spoken over your life in this message here, the restoration of your mind, the destruction of the strongholds, the second touch in the wilderness, the recognition of the frequency you carry, all of it is pointing in the same direction, forward, into territory that has your name written on it in the language of heaven, into rooms that were built for you before you were built for them, into relationships and opportunities and moments of divine convergence that have been held in trust by the God who does not misplace what he has prepared for his chosen ones. But I want to speak honestly about what the threshold looks like from the inside, because it almost never looks the way chosen ones imagine it will look when they are still on the other side of it. The threshold does not usually feel like a celebration. It does not usually feel like a clear signal that says, "This is the moment everything changes. Step through now." More often, the threshold feels like one more ordinary day that requires one more act of ordinary faithfulness. One more morning, where you choose to believe before the evidence arrives. One more decision to move in the direction of what you know, rather than in the direction of what you can currently see. One more step that looks unremarkable from the outside, but is, in the economy of heaven, the step that changes everything. The chosen ones, who miss their threshold, are not people who lacked the capacity for it. They are people who were to feel significant before they stepped through it. They were looking for a sign that this particular moment was the one. And because the moment looked like every other moment, they waited for a more obvious door, and the door they were standing in front of quietly closed. Do not be that person. Not today. Not in this season. Not when everything that has been building in your interior is already pointing you toward a threshold that is closer than it has ever been. The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 31, verse 8, speaks a word that was given to a chosen one, who was standing at exactly this kind of moment. Joshua had spent decades in preparation. He had been faithful in the wilderness. He had served without the title. He had carried the vision of a land he had not yet entered for 40 years, watching an entire generation choose fear over faith and forfeit what had been promised to them. And now it was his turn. Now the threshold was directly in front of him, and the word that came to him was this: "It is the Lord who goes before you. He will be with you. He will not leave you or forsake you. Do not fear or be dismayed." Do not fear or be dismayed. Not because there is nothing to be afraid of. Not because the territory ahead is without challenge or opposition or moments that will require everything you have, but because the one who goes before you has already been to where you are going. He has already walked the ground of your next season. He has already arranged what needs to be arranged, cleared what needs to be cleared, and positioned what needs to be positioned. You are not stepping into unknown territory. You are stepping into territory that your God knows completely, and His instruction to you is not to prepare more thoroughly before you go. His instruction is simply not to be afraid while you go. The fear that has been trying to hold you at the threshold is not wisdom. It is the final argument of an enemy who knows that once you cross, his window of influence over this chapter of your life closes. The dismay that settles over you when you look at the size of what is ahead and compare it to the resources you can currently account for is not discernment. It is the last tactic of a defeated opposition that cannot stop your crossing, but can slow it down if you agree with the feeling long enough to hesitate. Do not hesitate. I want you to do something right now that is going to mark this moment in a way that matters. In the comments below this video, type the words "My time now." Just those 3 words, "My time now," because right now, at this exact point in this message, you are not just a listener receiving information. You are a chosen one standing at the edge of a threshold that heaven built specifically for this moment in your story. When you type "My time now," you are not making a boast. You are making an agreement. You are declaring with your own words that the season of waiting has done its work in you, that the preparation was real, that the wilderness produced what it was always meant to produce, and that the person who came out on the other side of it is the person who was always going to cross this threshold. You are saying to heaven and to yourself that you understand what this moment is, and you are not going to let it pass unmarked. Type "My time now" in the comments. Let every chosen one reading alongside you see your declaration. Let your own words become an anchor for what you are stepping into. There is also something important about this particular moment in the message that I want you to hold carefully. Because we are approaching the threshold together, and what comes next in this journey is going to require a clarity of mind that the enemy has been specifically working to prevent you from accessing. The fog, the confusion, the mental heaviness that we talked about in the earlier sections of this message, those are not coincidental. They are the warfare of an enemy who knows that a chosen one who cannot think clearly cannot navigate the threshold effectively. A chosen one who is operating in suppressed cognitive function, whose gamma and theta frequencies have been dulled by years of stress and survival, is a chosen one who reaches the door of their destiny and cannot see it clearly enough to walk through it with confidence. This is why the restoration of your mind is not a luxury. It is a necessity. It is not self-improvement for its own sake. It is preparation for the crossing. And every resource that has been made available to you in this season, whether spiritual or practical or neurological, is pointing you toward the same thing. The full expression of who you were made to be, operating at the frequency you were designed to carry, stepping through the threshold that was built for you before the foundation of the world was laid. The chosen ones who crossed their threshold successfully are not the ones who were the most talented, the most disciplined, or the most spiritually advanced. They are the ones who, at the crucial moment, chose to move, who decided that the word of God spoken over their lives was more reliable than the evidence of their circumstances, who took the step that looked unremarkable from the outside, and discovered on the other side of it that heaven had been waiting for exactly that movement to release what had been held in trust. Joshua crossed, not because the Jordan River had already parted when he arrived at its banks. It parted when the priests carrying the ark stepped into the water. The miracle followed the movement. The opening followed the obedience. The threshold gave way not to preparation, but to the willingness of a chosen one to get their feet wet in faith. Your Jordan is in front of you. The territory on the other side has your name on it. And the God who parted the water for Joshua is the same God who is watching you right now, not with the patience of someone who is waiting to see what you will do, but with the anticipation of someone who already knows what you are capable of and is simply waiting for you to know it too. Step toward the water. The parting is already prepared, and what is waiting on the other side of your crossing is worth every year of every season that brought you to this exact moment on the bank. Before you were named, you were known. Before your parents held you for the first time and looked at your face and decided what to call you, before the first person who would ever love you had any idea you were coming, there was a knowing that preceded all of it. A knowing that existed in the mind of God before the first cell of your body was formed, before the first breath was drawn into lungs that had not yet developed, before the world that would receive you had any idea that someone like you was being prepared to enter it, and that knowing was not passive. It was not the kind of knowing that simply observes and takes note. It was an active, intentional, creative knowing that looked at the full length of your life, every season, its very wilderness, every threshold, every moment of doubt, and every moment of fire, and said, this one, this is the one I am sending. You were not an afterthought. You were not a backup plan. You were not the result of circumstances aligning in a way that created an opportunity that God then decided to work with. You were a decision, a deliberate, specific, unrepeatable decision made by the Creator of everything that exists, who looked across the full landscape of human history and determined that this particular moment in time needed exactly the person that you are, carrying exactly the frequency you carry, with exactly history you have accumulated through every season that brought you here. That is not a comfortable truth for some chosen ones to receive, because it requires accepting a level of significance that feels presumptuous to claim. There is a particular kind of humility that chosen ones sometimes mistake for virtue, a shrinking, a minimizing, a constant qualification of their own worth, and calling that presents itself as spiritual maturity, but is actually a form of agreement with the voice that has been telling them they are not enough. True humility is not the denial of what God placed in you. True humility is the recognition that what God placed in you is entirely His doing and entirely His gift, received with open hands rather than deflected with false modesty. Open your hands right now, not as a physical gesture, though you may do that if it helps you receive what is being said, but in the interior place where you actually hold things, where the things you have been given are either grasped or released. Open your hands and let what God has spoken over your life land in them without immediately pushing it away. You are chosen. You were chosen before the foundation of the world, and that choosing has never been revoked, not by your failures, not by your doubts, not by the seasons where you could not feel it and could not see it and could barely remember that it was true. The election of God does not operate on the basis of your performance. It operates on the basis of His character, and His character does not change with your circumstances. The prophet Jeremiah understood this in a way that cost him everything. He was a man who was chosen before his birth for an assignment that he never fully wanted, that brought him more pain than glory, that required him to stand in the middle of a people who refused to hear what he was sent to say and to keep saying it anyway, year after year, decade after decade, with very little visible evidence that anything he was doing was making a difference. He wept over his calling. He argued with God about it. He sat in the ruins of everything he had been sent to protect and wondered what the point of any of it had been. And yet, the word that God spoke over him at the beginning of his assignment was never retracted. It was never qualified by the difficulty of what followed. It stood over every hard season, every moment of weeping, every day in the pit, every year of being ignored and misunderstood and rejected by the people he was sent to serve. The word of God over a chosen one is not conditional on the ease of the journey. It is not suspended during the hard chapters. It speaks as loudly over the wilderness as it does over the promised land, and it carries the same authority in the pit as it does on the mountaintop. The book of Jeremiah, chapter 1, verse 5, carries these words. Before I formed you in the womb I knew you, and before you were born I consecrated you. I appointed you a prophet to the nations. Before I formed you, before the womb, before the beginning of the biological process that would eventually produce the person reading these words, God had already known you, already consecrated you, already appointed you to the assignment that your life was always meant to carry. The knowing preceded the forming. The appointment preceded the existence. You were chosen before you were capable of being chosen, which means the choosing was never about your capability. It was always about His intention, and His intention for you has not changed. I want to sit with you in that for a moment, because the weight of it deserves more than a passing acknowledgement. Before you were formed, He knew you. That means every part of you that you have considered a liability, every aspect of your personality or your history or your particular way of experiencing the world that you have worried might disqualify you or limit you or make you less suitable for what you were called to, was already known before the calling was issued. God did not look at you and issue a calling and then discover your complexity later and have to revise His assessment. He knew the full picture before He made the decision. He knew the hard parts. He knew the seasons that would shake you. He knew the moments where you would sit under your own tree and ask to be released from the journey. He knew all of it, and he chose you anyway, not in spite of the full picture, but with full knowledge of it. That means the things you have been most ashamed of, the places where you have felt most disqualified, the chapters of your story that you would rewrite if you had the ability to go back. None of them surprised God. None of them caused him to reconsider his choosing. None of them created a gap in the calling that now needs to be filled with extraordinary effort or exceptional performance before the assignment can be resumed. The calling was issued over the full version of you, including the parts that felt like failures, and it has never been withdrawn. This is the truth that the enemy has worked hardest to keep you from fully receiving. Because a chosen one who truly believes they were known and chosen and consecrated before they were formed is a chosen one who cannot be paralyzed by shame. And shame has been one of the most effective tools in the arsenal of the darkness against the chosen ones in this generation. Not the obvious, dramatic shame of public failure, though that has been used too, but the quiet, persistent interior shame that says your history makes you unsuitable, that what you have been through has somehow diminished the original design, that the version of you that arrives at the threshold of your calling is a lesser version of what God originally intended. It is not. You are not a lesser version. You are a seasoned version. A version that has been through the fire and did not burn. A version that walked through water and did not drown. A version that sat in the wilderness and received the second touch and got up and kept walking. Every hard thing you have carried has not subtracted from who you are. It has added to the testimony that you carry, the testimony that the world around you needs to witness. The evidence that the God who chose you before the foundation of the world is the same God who kept you through everything that came after. The nations that Jeremiah was appointed to speak to were not small. The assignment was not manageable by human standards. It was enormous, costly, and long, and the man who carried it was not someone who had an easy interior life or an uncomplicated relationship with his own calling. He was someone who wrestled and wept and kept going anyway, because the knowing that preceded his forming was stronger than every circumstance that followed it. The knowing that preceded your forming is stronger than everything you have been through. It is stronger than the waiting. It is stronger than the warfare. It is stronger than the seasons where you could not feel it. It is the unshakable foundation under every part of your story, the thing that has been holding you up in every moment when you thought nothing was holding you at all. You were known before you were formed. You were consecrated before you were born. You were appointed before you took your first breath. And the one who knew you and consecrated you and appointed you is still the one holding your story, still writing the chapters that have not yet been lived, still moving in the unseen places to bring about the ending that was decided before the beginning ever began. Nothing about you was an accident. Nothing about your journey has been wasted, and nothing about what is ahead of you is beyond the reach of the God who chose you before the world knew your name. You have traveled a long way in this message, not just through the words, but through something deeper than words, through a territory in your interior that needed to be walked through slowly and honestly, with the kind of attention that most of the noise of daily life does not allow. You came into this message carrying something, and what you are carrying right now, at this closing moment, is different from what you arrived with. Not because anything in your external world has changed in the last hour, but because something in the internal world, the one that governs everything the external world eventually becomes, has been touched, shifted, and in some places rebuilt from a foundation that will not shake when the next hard season comes. And I want to close this journey the way it deserves to be closed. Not with a summary of everything that was said, not with a final motivational push designed to send you out on an emotional high that fades by morning, but with something ancient and real and immediate. I want to close with prayer, because everything spoken in this message was always pointing toward the one who made you. And it is right that we return to him together before you go. Will you receive this prayer right now, wherever you are, whatever posture you are in, whatever the room around you looks like? Let these words carry your name into the presence of the one who already knows it. Father, I bring before you the chosen one who has been listening to this message today. You know exactly who they are. You know the weight they carried into this hour and the specific places in their story where the warfare has been most intense. You know the dreams they have quietly set aside, the questions that visit them in the early morning hours, the prayers they have prayed that felt like they went no further than the ceiling. And you know the frequency you placed inside them before they were formed, the design you engineered with specific intention, the calling you issued before they took their first breath. I ask you now to do what only you can do: restore what was stolen, rebuild what was broken, reactivate what was suppressed. Let the gamma frequency of the chosen one rise again in this person's mind and life. Let the strongholds that were built by years of warfare come down, not gradually but completely, because your word has divine power to destroy them, and your word has been released over this life today. Let them cross the threshold that is in front of them with the clarity and the courage of someone who knows they were known before they were formed. And let everything that has been held in trust for them in the unseen places begin to move into the visible world in this new season. In the name that is above every name, the name before which every knee will bow and every tongue will confess, let it be done. Amen. If that prayer landed somewhere real in you, I want you to know that it was not a performance and it was not a formality. It was a genuine reaching into heaven on your behalf. And what is released through genuine prayer does not evaporate when the video ends. It goes with you. It works in the places you cannot see. It moves ahead of you into the rooms you have not yet entered and begins arranging what needs to be arranged before you arrive. You are leaving this message different from how you came into it. Carry that difference carefully. Do not let the first difficult moment of your next ordinary day talk you out of what happened in your interior during this hour. The enemy will try that. He will try to use the gap between what you felt and what you can currently see to convince you that nothing real occurred, that this was just words, that you are still exactly who and where you were before you started listening. Do not agree with that argument. The movement of God in the interior of a chosen one is real, even when it is invisible, and it will become visible in the days and weeks ahead if you protect what was planted today. Now, the closing of this message is also the opening of your next season, and I want to make sure that you have everything you need to step into it with the full advantage of what has been made available to you. We spoke earlier about the Genius Wave, the 7-minute audio protocol developed by Dr. James Rivers after more than 30 years of neuroscience research, the tool that was specifically designed to restore the theta and gamma brain frequencies that chosen ones carry, and that the pressures of life suppress over time. That tool is still available right now through the link in the pinned comment below this video and in the description. $39, 90-day money-back guarantee, and only through the official link, because counterfeit versions exist and will not deliver what Dr. Rivers created. If your mind has been carrying the fog and the heaviness that we described in this message, if your thinking has felt slower and cloudier than it was designed to be, if your creative vision has felt dimmed and your capacity for clarity has felt reduced, this is the practical tool that supports the spiritual restoration that was spoken over you today. The link is there. The window is still open. Do not let it close without deciding. And before you go, there is something I want to ask of you that will cost you almost nothing, but will mean everything to the next chosen one who needs to find this message. Like this video. Press the button right now, not because a number on a screen matters, but because your agreement with this message sends it into the feed of someone who is sitting in their own wilderness tonight, someone who is under their own tree, someone who has been waiting for a second touch and does not know that the provision was already prepared. Your single click is the thing that delivers it to them. Do not underestimate what one act of agreement can do in the hands of a God who multiplies everything His chosen ones offer. Share this message, not into the general noise of your social feed, though that matters too, but think of one person, the one who came to mind somewhere in the earlier sections, when you heard something that made you think of them immediately. Send it to them directly. Write a message. You do not need to explain. Just say, "I thought of you." Let heaven do the rest. The person whose name surfaced was not random. They were placed in your mind because they are standing at a threshold of their own. And this message carries the word that was prepared for their moment. Subscribe to this channel if you have not already done so, because what was spoken today is part of a larger conversation that continues in every video in this space. The messages being released here are not generic content. They are specific words for specific seasons, and the season you are stepping into right now has messages that were prepared for it that you have not yet received. Subscribing means you will be there when they arrive, and chosen ones cannot afford to miss a word that was timed for their moment. I also want to speak to you from a place of honesty about this channel and what it takes to keep it going. This channel is no longer monetized through YouTube. That means every video you watch here, every message that reaches you in the middle of your night, every word that lands in the right place at the right time is produced without the financial support that most channels rely on to continue existing. We have chosen to keep going anyway, because we believe these messages are too important to stop, and the people receiving them are too valuable to abandon simply because the financial structure changed. But continuing requires support, and that support comes from this community. If this message touched you today, if something in it reached a place that needed reaching, if the prayer that was prayed over you landed somewhere real, and if you feel moved to help this channel continue to reach the next chosen one and the one after that, there is a donate link in the pinned comment below and in the description of this video. Your support, whatever size it takes, is a seed planted in the soil of a mission that is producing fruit in the lives of people you will never meet, but whose stories are being changed by the words that are released in this space. We are grateful for every act of support, every prayer prayed on behalf of this work, and every share that carries this message further than we could carry it alone. And if giving is not possible for you in this season, your presence is enough. Your comment is enough. Your decision to stay until the end of this message and receive what was spoken over your life today. You are not a passive receiver in this community. You are a chosen one in the middle of your own story, and your story matters to every person in this space. You came here carrying something heavy. You are leaving carrying something different. Not lighter, in the sense that the challenges have disappeared, but lighter in the sense that you are no longer carrying them alone. And you are no longer carrying them without the knowledge of who you are and whose you are and what was decided over your life before the beginning of your story. You were chosen before the foundation of the world. You were known before you were formed. You were consecrated before you were born. The frequency inside you is real. It is measurable, and it is being restored. The strongholds are coming down. The threshold is in front of you, and the God who brought you through everything that brought you to this moment is the same God who is going before you into everything that comes next. You are not ordinary. You were never meant to be ordinary. You are marked by heaven, kept by grace, and standing at the beginning of the chapter that makes every previous chapter make sense. Go forward. The best of your story is still ahead of you.